Well, this morning we have the treat of listening to the expertise of Ben Tuinei. He's one of the nicest guys I know, but he's also very, very intelligent, and I'm sure many of you have spoken to him in the last couple days. But he is the expert when it comes to negotiating reimbursement from insurance companies, helping to leverage yourself and getting better reimbursement from these companies. He is a natural. You're going to absolutely enjoy listening to Ben. He's just a super treat to listen to and to know. So Ben, welcome.
So a boy goes up to his dad and asks his father, where do human beings come from? The father replies by saying, our religious affiliation, our religious beliefs tell us that God placed Adam and Eve on this earth. They had kids, and their kids had kids, and a couple thousand years later, my parents had me, and now you're here because of your mom and I. Satisfied with the answer, the boy goes out, and 5 minutes later, he comes running back in and says, Dad, you lied to me. Mom said that we used to be monkeys and gorillas, and evolution occurred, and now we're no longer monkeys, we're human beings. And the father said, no, your mom's correct. She's talking about her side of the family. So when you think about the definition, the perception of things in life, you have insurance companies, and then you have dentists and dental specialists. And like Mark said, you don't communicate. So your definition of usual, customary, and reasonable is completely different than theirs. I've been told by many people that doctors, they believe that UCR is the insurance fee schedule, not your fee-for-service fees. Is that correct? I don't think so. I think UCR, according to a lot of the doctors that I talk with, defines whatever you charge in your practice, whatever the market will bear for the services that you provide. My issue with insurance companies is defined by my personal experience. So 3.5 years ago, my wife went into labor, not labor, she went into kidney failure, and that led to liver failure, and that eventually led to heart failure. So at 24 weeks gestation, they had no choice but to pull my son out. He was 1 pound, 10 ounces, very, very small child. So yes, that is my left hand, and he was smaller than my hand at that time. So I go back to the room. Of course, they wheel my wife out of the OR. They take her back to the room. And I'm sitting there with her, and in comes marching in a gentleman. The guy introduces himself as the billing manager for the hospital. First thing I thought is, oh crap, there's an issue with payment that they're concerned about. I guarantee you my son needs some type of life-saving surgery. Sure enough, it was. The billing manager I asked him to exit the room. I didn't want my wife to hear about this. She's just got done with a very major, painful surgery. So the billing manager proceeds to explain to me that our plan coverage, unfortunately, the cardiothoracic surgeons that they have are not permitted to provide an open heart surgery that my son needed right away. And that the only providers in that facility that can do this are the general surgeons. So I stopped him right there and I said, well, what's the survival rate for this particular procedure? What's the survival rate for the general surgeons versus the cardiothoracic surgeons? Survival rate for the general surgeons is in the range of 15 to 20%, cardiothoracic surgeon 90+%. And I said, well, why don't you get a cardiothoracic surgeon in there? Well, it's because you're not happy to tell you this. It's your insurance is not going to cover it. So I made a decision very quick. I don't care what my plan covers. I don't care if I have to sell a kidney or part of my heart. You do whatever you need to do to get the best quality of care for this child. Mind you, before getting into this conversation with this billing manager, I've already done research on all the potential negative outcomes a 24-week child could have throughout their life. You're talking about heart issues, retina issues, lung issues, you name it, and the list goes on and on and on. And being in my area of dentistry, I'm a firm believer that quality of care should be the first option when it comes to health care in any aspect, whether it's chiropractic or dental or medical. Quality of care should be the first option. So I told the billing manager, I don't care if it's $100,000, let's get the cardiothoracic surgeon in here. Sure enough, they did. That's last year, late last year, Savannah, Georgia, where his mom's from. Thank you. Not a single issue. He's been around for 3.5 years. We did everything we could to make sure that he had a fighting chance, but my mentality at this time was different. I wanted him to not experience the heart issues, the vision issues, the lung issues, the retina issues. So we got him the best doctors. And today, he is a very, very beautiful guy. Beautiful arches, just a beautiful and healthy kid in general. So that's my experience with medical insurance. Think about in your practices for a second. How many of you are participants or contracted with at least one PPO? So the majority of you. 5 or more. How many of you experience denials, downgrades, you name it? Do you feel that insurance has somewhat become an obstacle between you and the patient in terms of you providing the best quality of care? Okay. And sometimes it boils down to the money. Today, what we're going to talk about one thing in the industry that I can help you with, at least give you some educational tools that will allow you to get better reimbursements or to deal with the insurance companies in such a way where you don't have to even think about compromising your quality of care because you can't afford the lab that you used to use because the crowns are at $400 instead of the $1,000 that you normally collected when you were a fee-for-service provider. This is a 4-semester college course worth of information that we're going to cover in an hour. So I'm not going to get to everybody's questions. Send me an email directly, ben.tuinei, don't forget the I's, @gmail.com. That's my personal email. Let's talk about money for a second. Now we have the NFL's Players Association a couple doors down there. And when you look at the NFL, National Football League, and you look at the dental industry for a second, and you look at all the money that's put into the NFL and all the money that's put into dentistry, 2 very similar industries when it comes to money. So back in 2000, Super Bowl 34, does anybody remember this? Do you remember this game? This game actually came down to the wire. It was the very last second of the game that determined the outcome, determined the winner and the loser. So in the last play of the game, this guy here in the blue jersey came inches short of the goal line. Those few inches cost his team millions of dollars worth of bonuses and endorsements. Kurt Warner was actually quarterbacking for the opposing team that won. His bonus, Kurt Warner's bonus, because he was awarded MVP, was $1 million for this one game alone, on top of his several million-dollar contracts. The value of a Super Bowl MVP today is about $10 million in endorsements, bonuses, brand new cars, and you name it. So much money in that industry. And so much money lost because somebody came inches short of the goal line. Well, look at your practices for a second. Look at the inches that you're having to deal with on a daily basis. Almost sounds like a midnight commercial. But it's the write-offs that you're having to deal with all the time, right? Some of you are producing $1 million worth of PPO revenue and you're writing off $400,000. Is there a problem with that? Hell yeah, there's a big problem with that. So here in Arizona, I did a study here locally with a couple hundred practices, and 37% is the average PPO write-off here in this state. Nevada, 35%, and then in the state of Utah where I live, it's closer to 40%. And this is just PPO. When you're dealing with Medicaid, I mean, anybody here practice in California? Do you take Denti-Cal? If you were to add Denti-Cal to the California averages, write-off averages, it pushes us up to almost 50%. Denti-Cal requires pediatric dentists to write off their fees, sometimes 90%, and oftentimes delivering procedures for free. And I don't know who can provide dentistry for free, but we got to put a stop to this. You have to, especially if you're going to be building group practices. There are things that you can do to be more profitable. And these are the things that we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the 7 steps on how to negotiate with insurance companies. Negotiating tips in general, those are going to be some of the tips that I've learned when you deal with insurance companies. Dental benefit programs, I'm going to talk about the keys in building your own dental benefit plan within your own group practices. And for those of you that are solo practitioners, this is something that you should or could implement on your own. And the last thing I want to do is I want to motivate you to do something with this knowledge. This is going to be a lot of good information, but it would really upset me if you just took this and sat on it. So let's talk about negotiating for a second. Any expert negotiators in here? It's a tough game. It is a tough gig. I think some of the best negotiators out there are attorneys. If you have a guy like Gary, who in my opinion is a phenomenal attorney. I mean, Gary's a good example of a great negotiator. But let's take a look at the legal industry for a second so I can illustrate my point about effective negotiating. 1994, remember this guy? Guilty or innocent? Guilty? He was acquitted. Yeah, he was guilty. I think 99% of the public thought this guy should have been thrown in jail. He had what the legal industry refers to as the dream team. Okay, so the dream team of attorneys right here. But according to some of the legal analysts that I talked to today, if this case happened in 2014, OJ would have paid more than $20 million for the quality of this dream team. And the result was he walked scot-free. Okay, Casey Anthony. Anybody from Florida? Do you remember this case a few years ago? So was she guilty or innocent? She was guilty, but she walked scot-free. Why? Because of a guy by the name of Jose Baez. I believe he did this case pro bono, but he billed the state of Florida a couple $1 million for administrative fees to represent her in this case. But the year after this case, I heard through various sources that Jose Baez was making in the ballpark of $10 million in legal fees and income. That's just a direct result of him winning this case. Whether he argued it truthfully or not, the fact is that he's an effective negotiator. Okay, so this actually occurred here in Arizona, Jody Arias. My wife and I moved up to the Salt Lake City area 6 months ago, and where we used to live here, this case happened just a block down the street from us, and the sad thing is my wife actually used to date the guy that she killed. But one name comes out. If you follow this case on television, the one name people remember is his name, Juan Martinez. So Juan Martinez is still a prosecutor in the state of Arizona, but he was offered a $4 million contract with a prominent law firm here in Scottsdale, and he turned it down because he really believed that he needed to fight scum like this and stay within the county or state system to do so. The point about this, folks, is that it's the best advocate. The best advocate will win all the time, hands down. Whether it's in the legal system, whether you're in dentistry, who's advocating for you? When it comes to insurance fees, the question is, who's allowed to advocate for you? It is completely against antitrust for the American Dental Association or the Academy of General Dentistry to get involved in any type of fee negotiations on your behalf. It's not that they don't want to. Their hands are tied. They can't do anything about it. So who then becomes your advocate? You. Put on that hat. I'm going to be my own advocate. Let me teach you how to do that. And let me be your advocate as well. Let's talk a minute about the sports industry, the advocacy that occurs in the sports industry. So Major League Baseball, Scott Boras is the #1 agent. Everybody hires him because he gets the best contracts. So back in 2010, Scott negotiated almost $1 billion worth of contracts for 4 players. His commission structure, 5%, I believe, made me want to change my career. You look at the NFL. There's a guy by the name of Tom Condon, the #1 sports agent in the NFL, the most powerful sports agent, and he represents big guys like Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, and you name it. So for those 4 players, over $250 million worth of contracts. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing to me. If you put on your negotiating hat and become an expert negotiator, the negotiators, the best ones, will win all the time. Okay, so let's get into the 7 steps. Now, these 7 steps are designed to, well, I'm going to teach you how to be an advocate for your practices, for your group practices. We're going to start with what I refer to as a SWOT analysis of your insurance department. The insurance department that you have to look at it from an unbiased perspective, meaning look at all the facts and find all the facts related to your insurance department. And the first place to start is your fees. For years, and this may sound elementary for a second, folks, but the reality is that so many practices across the country are underpriced, well underpriced. And insurance companies will assess reimbursements. A lot of them assess reimbursements based upon what the doctors charge in the area. The best database to review your fees, in my opinion, and based upon reviewing thousands of fee schedules, is fairhealthconsumer.org. So Fair Health was started in 2009, I believe, resulting from a $100 million settlement between the state of New York and just about every insurance carrier out there. And one of the reasons why the state of New York initiated a lawsuit against the insurance companies is because the insurance companies couldn't justify their fees, especially for out-of-network. They couldn't explain to the state of New York why they came up with the benefits that they came up with. And you and I both know that for years, insurance benefits whether it's dental or medical, are largely designed or have been designed to give insurance companies huge profits. And very little consideration on the provider income or the provider reimbursements, and very little consideration on the actual patient care or the actual recipient of those plans. So long story short, Fair Health Consumer, or Fair Health, was created out of this money to provide the entire United States of America, including the doctors, an actual definition on UCR percentiles. So here's our website. You can check it out. What I recommend is Fair Health will give you 20 free searches a month. And for most of you, you're billing 30 procedure codes max consistently. Do 20 at your office and 10 at home, or 20 at home. And that'll give you a good round number of exactly where you should be. So when it comes to fees, and this is a practice here in Mesa, Arizona, we looked up the all-ceramic crown 2740. Fair Health came out and reported that 2740 in this particular zip code was priced at $1150. The majority of the doctors that I work with in this zip code are around $910, $920. I got an insurance company to reimburse the doctor on this same code at $1,000. So if an insurance company is willing to reimburse you at $1,000, your fee should be higher than that, because insurance companies factor in a minimum of a 20% discount off of what you charge. So check out this website. The 80th percentile is the number that they'll report to you. Now, percentiles when it comes to fees is not the same as percentiles when it comes to taking a college exam. When you take a college exam, you score in the 80th percentile, you scored higher than 80% of the other participants. According to the American Dental Association, the 80th percentile means that you're 80% of UCR, maximum UCR. So is it okay to be at the 80th percentile? Yes. The other reason why you need to be at the 80th percentile is if you're billing out a network, most insurance companies will pay 100% up to the 80th percentile. So the 80th percentile is the benchmark, okay? Part 2 of building your insurance profile. You need to identify all the PPOs that you have a direct contract with, not an indirect contract. Has anybody heard of Connection Dental? When you participate with Connection Dental, it places you in network with a bunch of other plans that you may or may not want to be in network with. You need to know who your direct contracts are with for the purpose of negotiations, knowing who to negotiate with. And oftentimes what you'll find is if you're contracted only with Connection Dental and you go to, let's say, an Aetna, and you have a lot of patients from the Aetna network, oftentimes you'll get a better fee schedule from Aetna. So there's some strategy to knowing who your direct contracts are with. And in addition to that, most insurance companies will negotiate fees every 2 years. So part 3 of the insurance profile. Do you need to join plans? This is where the unbiased perspective of your insurance department comes in. Now, a lot of you are resistant to joining PPOs. The truth of the matter is that a lot of you won't survive if you don't consider PPO participation. What's the number one question patients ask when they call in inquiring about your dental practice? Do you take my insurance? And a lot of you have been accustomed to telling them, yeah, we'll file your insurance, getting around the actual question. But patients are more aggressive these days, right? They really ask, no. Are you in network with my plan? Once you say no, what happens next? Yeah, they hang up. They hang up and they call somebody else on their Google search. So here are some reasons, according to the practices that we pulled, here are some reasons why you might need to consider joining a PPO. If you consider the patient mentality, why patients want to go to an in-network practice alone, it's because of money. It boils down to cost and the perception that they'll get bigger savings if they were to go to an in-network facility. Dr. Cooper covered these numbers a couple days ago. The ADA says 73% of all patients, all active patients, have a third-party payer. 92% of doctors are participants with at least 3 or more PPOs, which leaves 8% of the practices out there that are truly fee-for-service. But what are we seeing with the fee-for-service model? I mean, are patients that loyal to you that they want to stick with you forever? Unfortunately, no. You're starting to see patients shop. And that's a huge threat to the fee-for-service model, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because insurance companies are now creating plans that have 0 out-of-network coverage. To my knowledge, some of those plans, I think one of them starting with Delta Dental is going to roll out next year, 2015, January 2015. So have you ever asked your patients how much they budget for dentistry? So we asked 500 people a series of questions. We asked them what they budget for dentistry, and they all said 0. You know how much they budget for a vacation annually? $2,500. At least that's what they want to put aside for vacations. So your real competition with patients, it's the boat that they want to buy. It's the Louis Vuitton purse that the wife wants them to get. It's the anniversary ring. It's a very friendly, competitive market out there, but your real competition is the fact that the patients don't want to spend money at your practice. Okay, so when you need to consider joining PPOs, here are 5 things to consider. The bottom line is that if you're losing a lot of patients as a result of being out of network with certain plans, that's when you need to pull the trigger on at least identifying or conducting a study on whether PPO participation will make you money or lose money, cause you to lose money. Now, it doesn't make sense for you to join a PPO plan where, let's say, you have $300,000 worth of revenue coming in from those patients from that particular network. Once you join that plan, that's 30% reduced fees right off the bat. And if the rate of loss exceeds the rate of potential opportunity by calculating or at least tracking how many patients on the front end are not scheduling with you because you're out of network, you need to know those numbers. You need to track them. So identify these things. Identify the value per PPO patient. That'll at least put you on the right path of identifying whether joining a PPO plan is important or necessary. Now, staff members across the country, we've asked, what are the common questions? If you knew that your practice needed to participate with more PPOs, what questions would you want your doctor to ask you? And these are the top 6. So go to your staff members first. See what their feedback is on each of these questions. Bottom line, folks, are you losing money because patients are not coming back in or they're not accepting treatment plans because you're out of network? These are things that you need to know and take a very serious consideration to. Okay, part 3, the leasing relationships from insurance company, the dynamics of how insurance companies work with each other is very complex. I refer to it as a spaghetti junction of confusion when you're dealing with PPOs, but here are the most common leasing arrangements in the dental industry. And what this means, folks, is that when you join principal only, you can also be in network with Emeritus. So the strategy here is let's negotiate with both principal and Emeritus, and let's join the PPO plan that will give us the best fee schedule. And this is in the event where you desire to be in network with both. Same thing with Aetna and Assurant. Connection Dental is a big one. I would add Mavericks Dental Network. That's a new network that is very similar to Connection Dental. They're actually offering really good fees. You join a company like Mavericks, they'll give you better fees than what these companies are willing to offer individually if you were to approach them. So there's some strategy. There's strategy in knowing how to join, how to maximize your potential income, or how to maximize your fees based upon insurance relationships. Okay, so part 4, building your insurance profile, is you need to know your style of dentistry as it pertains to billing. Most general dentist practices, 30 procedure codes represent more than 90% of revenue. So when you negotiate a fee schedule, there are 350 plus CDT codes. Focus on the ones that mean the most financially for you. The second thing that you need to do when it comes to identifying your billing, your top billing procedures, you need to know all the alternative benefits. So you have insurance companies that play this downgrade game with you. Well, negotiate those fees too. So the most common downgraded codes or procedures, posterior composites down to amalgam, PFM high noble is down to base metal, PFM base metal, and then all ceramics are downgraded to full cast base metal crowns. I have a question. Does anybody in here seat full cast base metal crowns? Why not? Clinically, give me a reason why you don't do that. Nickel allergies, right? Plus, it's an ugly crown. But the nickel allergies, the potential for nickel allergies, and patients scratching their gums for the rest of their life. So who's liable? I mean, Gary, who would be liable if a patient experienced, you don't have to answer this, Gary, but think about it for a second. Who's liable? If the employer only selects to cover base metal crowns and you seat a base metal crown and the patient's scratching their gums, who's liable for that? Something to think about. Something to ask the insurance companies, because I want to encourage you to talk to insurance companies and ask these questions. But negotiate the alternative benefits. That's the point of this one here. Oh, SRP downgrades to pro fee. Does anybody experience that or see that in your practice? Not yet? Guess what? It's going to start to happen very shortly. So from a clinical perspective, if you found a patient that was in need of perio and any of your colleagues would have agreed with you, is the insurance company committing malpractice if they recommended that you should have done a pro fee? The answer to that question is, I believe so. I believe that the dental consultant who may have not even had a chance to review that claim, I mean, this is an easy appeal. Insurance company denies the SRPs and said you should have done a pro fee. Clinically speaking, if you were to perform a pro fee, that would have been malpractice, you know? So challenge the insurance consultants on these issues. And they're licensed dentists in their state. They're liable in front of their dental board to do the right thing when it comes to approving claims such as SRPs. When you're negotiating with insurance companies, the reason why the alternative benefit codes are very, very important is because most insurance companies will omit those procedure codes from the actual fee schedule offer. So this fee schedule, but what's missing here is 2791, which is the full cast base metal crown. So this insurance company they increased the porcelain crown here, the all ceramic, from $500 and something to $810, but the full cast base metal crown was still priced out at $490. It didn't matter that we received a $300 increase on the all ceramic because we knew full well that the insurance company was going to only reimburse us on the full cast base metal. So we went back and renegotiated that fee and had them pull it up to about $800. So focus on your downgrades. A lot of insurance companies that I deal with tell me that 40% of your claims are subject to be downgraded. And I think it's going to get worse because insurance companies are looking for ways to tighten the belt. They're going to tighten the belt by reducing your reimbursements, and they're going to tighten the belt by doing more of the denials. And this includes those of you that are out of network. It's going to get a lot worse in terms of the downgrade, abuse, or whatever you want to refer to it as. But this is just a direct result of practices not challenging. Not enough practices challenging the insurance companies on the downgrades. I suggest or recommend that you challenge every downgrade and every denial, especially if in your clinical decision you're right. Okay, so part 5 of building the insurance profile is you need to know who to talk to. 5 years ago, I would have told you to find the VPs, the directors, the presidents, but what I found is that when you go to the higher upper level management folks at insurance companies, they're not incentivized to give you any increases because the more money they give you means less money for them in bonuses. Washington Dental Services up in the state of Washington, their CEO made $1.2 or $1.3 million last year. They don't have any incentive. They don't want to give you money. So the folks that you need to find are the ones that are actually incentivized through bonuses to talk to you, especially those of you that need to join PPO networks, is you find the recruiters. You find the network managers and the network recruiters. Look for the recruiter title, and those will be the folks that will help you negotiate. Now, the network recruiters, if you're out of network, they will seek you out. They'll come and knock on your door. Before you join any plan, just make sure that you make a good attempt to negotiate fees. We're going to talk about those network recruiters here further in a minute. But let's review step 1. So insurance profile. 80th percentile is my recommendation on where your fees ought to be. Finding out who your direct contracts are with. And then having an unbiased perspective, or at least an unbiased approach to identifying whether joining PPO plans would be financially beneficial for you. And then, remember folks, identify your alternative benefit codes to include them in your top 30. And then, of course, knowing the who's who at the insurance companies to negotiate with. Okay, step 2, leverage. I get this question all the time. Can a solo practitioner negotiate fees? Yes. Solo practitioners can implement these steps and be just as successful. The only problem is that most of the bigger players, like Delta Dental, United Concordia, MetLife, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, will not deal with solo practitioners. So practices that have sufficient size and leverage, or at least sufficient revenue, those are the ones that are the most successful. And I think that's why we're here, right? We want to find ways to create an economies of scale with our group practices. And group practices, my experience, have been the ones that have been the most successful in negotiating better reimbursements from PPOs. If you want an example negotiating letter, send me an email. I'll be happy to send you one. Just please do not use it because we've had other people use the same letter. Boy, I'd love to be a fly on the wall at MetLife, looking at the same letter over and over and over again. Insurance leverage. McCarran-Ferguson. I forgot to tell Vinny that part of my 5-year goal is to see if we could get this thing appealed. So the McCarran-Ferguson essentially exempts insurance companies from antitrust. How does this work to your disadvantage? So Cigna will call Aetna. The Cigna representatives will call Aetna and ask for whatever fee schedule that they're using for any particular zip code or area. And the reason why Cigna does that is if Aetna has a higher enrollment and Aetna's enrolling a bunch of doctors under a crappy fee schedule, then Cigna's going to want to do the same thing as well. Gives them an excuse. Like the first thing that comes to mind is, gosh, if Aetna's signing up doctors at that low fee schedule, then so can we. So you have this problem as a result of the McCarran-Ferguson, where insurance companies are colluding and cost-containing you out of business. You need to talk to the ADA more, see if you can get this thing repealed, because they'll continue to do that. And the purpose, of course, is always, always try to pay you less. Okay, one thing that you can't do, and I think this is one thing that I like about the group practice concept, is that as independent owners of different practices, you cannot get together and you cannot collectively negotiate fees because it is against the law. So just don't enter into any collective boycotting in your study clubs because a lot of doctors get in trouble for that. So size matters when it comes to negotiations. I mean, heck, you have Henry Schein, you have Patterson Dental that has special markets divisions that's specifically designed for group practices. And you get 30 to 40% off of your supply deals, right? Great deal. Well, you can do the same thing with insurance companies. The threshold in negotiating with the bigger payers, like Delta Dental, the four that I mentioned, is you need to do $25 million a year or more, and then they'll talk to you. Yesterday, I got off the phone with an attorney up in the state of Washington, and I'm not going to mention the name of the group or the insurance company. We secured a 30% discount for a group practice in the state of Washington, a 30% increase for 9 out of the 10 practices. And this was an insurance company that has more than 60% of the market share in that state. And that's because they put together a structure with Dr. Mark Cooper based upon what we're talking about in this conference. So size absolutely matters when it comes to negotiating with the bigger payers. So here's a case study. Think of group practice in the Texas region. These 4 insurance companies, except for Cigna, Cigna still negotiates with a bunch of solo practitioners, but the 3 above Cigna do not normally negotiate with solo practitioners at all. The difference for this group is that they did $31 million that year. So these 4 insurance companies represented almost the majority of their income. In 2012, we were able to jump that number up with those 4 insurance companies by $6.5 million bucks, just between those 4 payers. Big increase, huge increase for that group. The total practice increase for that group for that year was about 11 million because they were growing very, very fast. The average income per doctor was over $1 million bucks, which was remarkable because most group practices average between $700,000 and $900,000 per doctor revenue. So these folks actually did something right. The point about group practice negotiations is that you have access to negotiating with the bigger carriers. I love seeing group practices come together because this means more freedom for you and more flexibility in terms of you being able to provide the best quality of care and using the labs that you want to use because you can now afford it. Okay, step 3. Step 3 is you got to find the players to negotiate with like we talked about. You don't want to go to the upper level management, of course, because they don't want to give you any more money. It means less money for them. You go to these folks here. The reason why the network recruiters are important is because these folks get incentivized on a quarterly basis to sign up X amount of doctors. So some of them get $10,000, some of them get $15,000 in bonuses each quarter if they meet that quota. Retention specialists at some PPOs are incentivized with bonuses to retain a certain level of number, a certain market share of doctors that are in network in that particular area. Gosh, if you call 1-800-CIGNA or 1-800-Aetna, you'll get routed to a call center where those call center members are purely scripted. If you do not have the network recruiters or network managers information, you're going to have no choice but to call the 1-800 numbers. What I normally do is when I call the 1-800 numbers, I never, ever mention anything about negotiations because keep in mind, these folks are scripted. They're always going to say we don't negotiate. If I'm looking to participate or explore participation with this PPO plan, I just simply tell them I'd like to talk to a network recruiter. I don't have much time to talk today. Have them contact me. If I'm already signed up with that plan, the one question I ask is I have a question about the provision in my contract I do not understand. I don't have time to talk about it today, but have the network recruiter call me. So those are 2 ways for you to get the network recruiters if you don't already have their information. Now, this also applies to solo practitioners, but for the group practices, you can have somebody trained that will do negotiations and credentialing on a regular basis. But to begin with, to get the best deals from each payer is that the doctor, you the doctor, have to be involved. If you're an MBA owner of a group practice, you have to be involved. You have to do the negotiating if you want to get the best results. The reason why I say you getting involved in the negotiating process is because we've tracked the numbers. Statistically, the rate of increases are far higher than the rate of increase that staff members get when they negotiate with insurance companies. Doctors are always successful. Now, this isn't a knock on the staff members. When you think about the contract between you and the insurance company, it's between you and the insurance company. It's not your staff member and the insurance companies. So we've seen challenges when staff members attempt to negotiate with insurance companies. But what we've been able to prove is that when the doctor gets involved, or the business owner, they are 10 times more successful in the negotiating process. And the first round of negotiations for that year, they usually secure phenomenal increases. Okay, step number 4, initiate the negotiating process. And of course, this is the part where you want to send your negotiating letter to that particular payer. Now, I'm a big believer that your communication should be tracked. And whenever I send a certified piece of mail to an insurance company, I always get a response. Now, we're just over the tax season, and this is actually the prime time when doctors get scared when they see certified mail coming in from your office, right? Because you think it's the IRS wanting more money out of you. But human mentality, human nature, when people receive certified mail, it's put on the top of the list, and you receive a lot of mail, and whenever you receive certified, of course it's put on the top of the list there, the top of the stack. Well, insurance companies do the same thing. You want to give them a deadline. Give them 72 hours to respond. Don't be too pushy and ask for a 1-day or 2-day response. I think common courtesy, give them some time. 3 days seems to be the sweet spot. And remember, when you write these negotiating letters, you don't have to be aggressive. Just lay out all your facts. But don't use foul language, because these insurance companies are human. I mean, these people at these insurance companies are they're like soldiers. They just follow orders. They're not bad people. They're told to do certain things, but if you take them off, I can guarantee you they're just not going to respond to you. Okay, step 5, reviewing offers. This is the fun part. When you get to the point where an insurance company gives you a fee schedule offer, don't ever accept the first offer. Review your top 30 procedures, review the alternative benefits, and then submit a counterproposal. What I normally do is I circle the top 30, all the alternative benefits, I slash out what they're willing to offer, and I put my fee. I put my office fee there saying this is what I want. You're not going to get your office fee all the time for every procedure, but you'll get close. My experience is when you submit at least 4 counterproposals, whatever they're willing to offer, you'll max out your earning potentials if you at least get to the 4th stage, the 4th counterproposal. So here's a fee schedule offer that we reviewed for practice actually here locally in the state of Arizona. Of course, what we wanted to do here is we wanted to negotiate the base metal crown from $490 as high as we could get it. So we got almost a $400 increase on the base metal. I mean, it's unheard of. I had a doctor that was planning on doing titanium crowns, and his titanium utilization, he never seated a titanium crown in the last 10 years. So we asked the insurance company to up the titanium crown, and the insurance company actually offered the doctor's full fee. I think it was $1,300 for the titanium crown. And the main reason why is because he never billed that crown before. The minute he got that fee schedule approved and effective, he started seating titanium crowns. In his clinical belief, he felt that the titanium crown was superior to PFM high noble and all ceramic. But that was a strategy that a doctor used to get a better reimbursement based upon utilization. So here's another example of downgrades. I have a question. For those of you that are participating with PPOs, what do you do when an insurance company downgrades composites to amalgam? Write it off? Do you collect the difference? I think you should charge composite fees. Now, this is where the controversy of my talk comes to play. You provided a superior restoration here. Why shouldn't you be able to charge the composite fee for composites? So what a lot of practices do, they utilize a powerful consent form that gives the patient consent. You want white or silver fillings. We don't do silver fillings, but we can make the arrangements for you to get silver fillings somewhere else. But if you want the white fillings, you have to pay this fee here, whatever the fee is that the insurance company is willing to pay. Excuse me, that's listed on the fee schedule. There's a key in being able to present this the right way and being able to collect. There are 32 states in the union that allow you to charge for non-covered services. And to my knowledge, if composite material is not covered, you're entitled to collect for it based upon the law. Those are 32 states. If you want a list of those 32 states, just send me an email. I can provide that list for you. What about crowns? Anybody in here see zirconia? You use zirconia? Does CDT have a code for zirconia? How do you bill out? You bill it out as a porcelain crown. Is it a porcelain crown? No. Do you believe that zirconia is superior to porcelain? From a structural perspective, zirconia is a metal. Have you seen that zirconia hammer test? I think Glidewell Lab pulled it out. If you Google zirconia hammer test, they smash a PFM into a 2x4, and then they smash a zirconia crown right next to it. What happens to the zirconia? This is a full contour zirconia crown, by the way, not a layered. It just fell right into the 2x4. They pull it out with the pliers, not a single scratch. So a lot of doctors show that video to the patients to illustrate the quality of zirconia. Now, some doctors actually charge a zirconia fee. We had a discussion this morning. Can you do that? Can you charge a fee for zirconia if you're a participant with PPOs? Don't get mad at me when I say this, because this is where the controversy comes in. Yes, you can. According to your insurance contracts If you're a participant with PPOs, and by the way, I verified this with Delta and all the PPOs that operate nationwide, is in your contracts, there's a clause in there that says for any added value service, the patient is responsible for those fees and those procedures. Now, this boils down to patient consent because the patient has to consent to receive that service as well as consenting to the fee, whatever fee it is that you want to charge. If you want more information on that, I do have a consent form that we've developed here with a group of attorneys in the state. I'm happy to share that with you, at least to get the wheels churning on this particular issue. And then I would recommend that you consult with your attorney because based upon your state laws, you may or may not be able to do that. Okay, step 6, accepting negotiated fees, and this is the fun part. About a year and a half ago, I get a call from a doctor in Long Island, New York. He says, Ben, I listened to your webinar and I implemented all 7 steps and I secured a really great increase from X insurance company. And a year later, I get an audit and I get a cease and desist and I get investigators coming into my office. And then I go to court and a judge tells me that I overbilled my patients by $30,000 and I had to write $30,000 worth of checks to a bunch of patients. This was a direct result of the doctor negotiating a fee schedule and not getting an effective date. So there are some tricks. There are some tricks with negotiating with insurance companies is that you have to do the follow-up. So the doctor received the fee schedule, never called back to see when this fee schedule was effective or never called back to make it official, and they started using this fee schedule. No one in the office caught that the EOBs were coming back and the doctor was still being compensated at the old fee schedule on the insurance portion, but on the patient portion, they were overbilling using the new fee schedule, and they did that for a year. It was a $30,000 mistake for this doctor. So this is actually a key step. You have to make it official with the insurance company and receive not only an effective date, but an expiration date and when that fee schedule is going to expire so that you can prepare to renegotiate that fee well before it expires. So what does this mean financially for your practice? So a practice that did $800,000 in Mesa, Arizona, which is 10 miles from here, you're negotiating with a bunch of PPOs that didn't include the non-negotiable PPOs for solo practitioners, Delta Dental, United, Concordia, MetLife, and Blue Cross. This still meant a $90,000 annual increase for this doctor. You're just getting paid more on the procedures that you're already providing your patients. Okay, step 6. This is actually a step that you should implement now. Tracking and monitoring your claims, conducting an audit on a monthly basis and finding out or at least determining whether the insurance company is paying you on that new fee schedule or not. What I see in a lot of practices today, even on fee schedules that are not even negotiated, is that the insurance companies will nickel and dime you still. They'll underpay you $1 or $2 here on your pro fees. They'll underpay you $50 or sometimes $5 on a crown. And as insignificant as it may seem, when you add up all the nickel and diming over a period of a year or two, it actually comes out to thousands of dollars. So that nickel and diming gets worse when you negotiate a fee schedule. And you don't need to audit all your claims. Just take 5 random claims per insurance company and just find out whether you're getting paid on your fee schedule or not. If the insurance company is not paying you on that new fee schedule, well, guess what? You have a contract with that insurance company and they're obligated to follow that contract. So it's not like you have to fight them like you fight a claim. It's a very, very easy and simple appeal. You just enforce the contract. Okay, so let's review. Let's review the steps. So step 1, approach your SWOT analysis with an unbiased perspective. Step 2, well, step 2 is the fun part. Get to 25 million and then you'll be able to negotiate with some of the big payers. Hope that motivates you. Step 3, know the who's who and who to talk to and how to get to the negotiating table. Step 4, write an effective negotiating letter. Email me. I'll be happy to share multiple negotiating letters. Just promise me that you won't use them. Step 5, alternative benefits, top 30 procedures. Top 30 most utilized procedures are the ones that you want to focus on. Step 6, make it official. And then the last step is it's your responsibility to make sure the insurance company is paying you all the time. Okay, so these are the inches, folks. That's how you collect the inches in dentistry. The inches with insurance revenue is you apply those 7 steps. We're going to talk about dental benefit plans for a second. Do any of you have your own in-house dental plan? Does it work? It's a good idea, huh? One of the great things about dental benefit plans is that this is yours. If you have multiple practices, this is now your plan, and patients, if they don't like one doctor, it's not like they can go down the street and use the plan at another facility. It's a good patient retention tool. But when you look at the statistics nationally, we're such an underinsured market when it comes to dental insurance. Now, I'm not a big believer in dental insurance. I don't have dental insurance. I pay my doctor my full fee all the time, and that's just my mentality. I want him to do the best job. I want him to afford the best labs. So he actually uses a different lab whenever I need a crown. But when you look at the average consumer or the average person, most people won't even go to the dentist if they don't have insurance unless they're in severe pain, right? So the trends statistically tell us that when a patient has a third party, whether it's dental insurance, whether it's a discount plan, which is what we're talking about, or whether it's Medicaid or Medicare, there's a greater chance that they'll actually go in and use their plan as opposed to not having a plan at all. It's the Costco and Sam's Club mentality. And that's exactly what this is here. So my recommendation, and by the way, I need to give Quality Dental Plans credit for this because they actually put these slides together for me and did the research and statistics. But you really seriously need to put together a dental plan. And financially, when I was running a group practice here locally, 25% of our revenue came from a discount plan. We were tapping into an area of our patient base where patients would normally come in to react to pain, and we got them on a regular hygiene program using our discount plan, and it meant 25% more income. That's a lot better than not having that 25% income, I'll tell you that. Okay, I covered a lot of information for you today. Heck, our panelists have done a great job, and I know that your minds are about to explode with all the information that's being given to you. But let me close on this. You now have decisions to make. You have lots of decisions to make, lots of things to consider. Consider this for a second. 2 degrees seems insignificant in the grand scheme of things, right? At 1,300 miles, it's 28 miles. Back in 1979, there was an air flight in New Zealand that left, I believe they left Wellington or Christchurch in the South Island. And the purpose of this flight, it was just a tourist destination flight where they were going to go down to Antarctica, circle Mount Erebus, take a look at the penguins, and go right back to New Zealand. It was a very inexpensive tour. So these aircraft back then didn't have all the bells and whistles. They had a bunch of indicators, but they didn't have all the bells and whistles and technology of our planes today. What happened was the pilot set course 2 degrees off. So as they approached Mount Erebus, it was a cloudy day, they started to descend, but they were 28 miles off course and they descended right into Mount Erebus. No survivors. It's actually a very sad story. But when you think about making a 2-degree mistake, it actually means a lot. In this case, it meant a couple hundred lives. So you look at your practices, you look at your approach with the information that we're sharing with you through this conference, you have a lot of things to consider. Don't make the 2 degrees of mistakes, especially the example of the doctor having to write $30,000 worth of checks back to his patients. Carefully consider these things, get some coaching, talk to the right people, and send me your questions. I don't have any more time, folks, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Here's my contact information. Enjoy your Saturday. Thank you.